Tet McMillan, not surprisingly, goes in the top 10. I think we were expecting him to go in the top 10, but surprisingly goes to the Panthers at 8th overall. And when that draft pick was made, Matt, I'm thinking, man, perfect fit.
Yeah.
Perfect fit. Tet McMillan can go out there and go play the X. That's going to allow Xavier Legette to go just be an athlete, right? Just be all over the football field. Jaylen Koh can be in that flanker slot position. And then when I got through that mental exercise, Matt, I thought to myself, wait a second now, what am I doing with Adam Thielen here?
Look at the release.
There's your separation.
Great route.
Stutter and go. Gets by clean.
That is unbelievable.
Maybe the greatest catch I've ever seen.
I wanted to discuss that with you too, but again, give me your initial reaction to Tet McMillan going to Carolina.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here,
right?
With this particular move. Let me just first start off saying I love what Carolina did at this pick.
Yeah,
I get it. They had a horrible defense last year,
right?
A historic and
one of the
worst defenses we've ever seen.
Yeah,
but you just look at the board and what was there. There, like Mason Graham being gone at the 5th overall pick to the Cleveland Browns, I think was a big deal. I do think that was a big deal. Like, had he fallen to 8, maybe we're having a different conversation. But I think where they stacked it, Carolina, like the players there just wasn't that guy. You know, they were popularly mocked Jalen Walker, who went to Atlanta in the middle of the first round. Like, there was just that drop off from a defensive talent perspective. And I think they looked at it like our offense is closer to being an above average unit than our defense is.
Oh, yeah.
Like much closer,
God, yeah.
based on what Bryce Young showed last year and the way the offensive line played and their run game and, you know, Chuba Hubbard. They signed Rico Dowdle. They actually just, as we're recording this here on Saturday, they drafted Trevor Etienne. Like their offense is closer. And some of the guys in the receiver room who you just went, like their offense is closer. Like we can get a finishing piece here at 8 overall. So I love the move there. Dave Canales has talked about his like watching Tet McMillan run routes, and you know Canales is a receiver coach. Like that was his background with before he moved to the quarterback coach in Seattle, he was a receivers coach. So like this is sort of his bread and butter here, and he's a huge fan. I get that. And again, it's just you still are working to make Bryce Young right. Like me working to make that pick right. Even if it wasn't this GM, Dan Morgan was in the front office, but it wasn't this GM. And obviously Dave Canales wasn't the head coach. Doesn't matter. Like you still got to get that has to be right.
I know, but that feels like it's like a David Tepper like ego thing.
Totally. but it doesn't matter. Like this is your guy. He showed you last year he can be a starting quarterback. You got to make that pick right in some way. And I the reason I think that I'm saying that is like this receiver room without McMillan was like mediocre at best.
Oh, at best.
At best. So
I mean, they were trying to fit, you know, square pegs into round holes. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
Like they're like, okay, Xavier, you got to go play the X. It's like, well, listen, he's probably better as a flanker slot guy.
Correct.
You know, Jaylen Koh's got, you know, playing some X too. It just didn't work. And yet, despite that, we know from a talent perspective, these boys can play now. You know what I mean? So no, and again, so keep going. But yeah, that was the thought. I thought. At the end of last year in Carolina.
Exactly. And I think if you look at what happened last year with Xavier Legette's rookie season, because we talked about this on the podcast, and I'll get back to McMillan, but I think I want to talk about how this actually impacts Legette before we talk about McMillan here.
Hey, you know I'm all for that. Let's go.
Yeah, because if you look at the kind of pattern of Xavier Legette's rookie season, it was actually starting off pretty well. Like he gets on the he doesn't do much in the first couple of weeks, but he gets on the field as like a kind of more of a full-time player around week 4. He has a really nice game against Cincinnati Bengals, 10 targets because Adam Thielen gets banged up at this point. He gets on there, he has 10 targets, 66 yards, and a touchdown. And I remember charting that game and thinking like, oh man, they've got the usage exactly right for Legette. He's off the line of scrimmage. He's moving around between flanker slot. Like exactly what Canales talked about when they drafted him last year. Like we're getting him on the move, snaps out of the backfield, crossing routes. And if you go back to Xavier Legette's reception perception prospect profile, his 2 best routes were slants and digs. And those were, and you know, he could run some quick outs and they were doing that with him as well. The longer the season goes on, the worse the results start to get. I mean, he has a lot of really rocky performances, issues at the catch point, stuff like that. That's areas where he can get better, but that also maps with when our buddy Deontay Johnson, sort of exits stage left, right? Because at that point,
still unsigned, by the way,
still unsigned. Not sure when that's going to happen. And again, you can map the season really falling apart for Legette right around when they got back from that Week 11 bye when they played the New York Giants in Week 10 across the pond in London. I think it was London, maybe it's Germany. I don't know. It was
overseas
international game.
Yeah, okay.
They moved David Moore out of the X receiver position and put Legette in it. And that's when Legette's season really started to kind of get away from him. Now he doesn't have to do that. And again, if you go back to his prospect profile, 54.5% success rate versus man coverage for Xavier Legette. It's just not his game. I know he's got the size. I know he's got the speed, but he's a horizontal threat. I think he's
just an athlete, man.
He's just an athlete. Horizontal routes from the flanker position, from the slot. That's where you want to use him. McMillan, 73.1% success rate versus press. I don't think he needs to be an only X receiver, exclusively. You do want to get him moving around a little bit, but that suddenly just solves two problems there.
Totally.
We can get our last year's first round pick in his right position. We get the missing piece on our offense because I like Jaylen Koh and Adam Thielen. Those guys are both kind of bigger slot players as well. You suddenly have a very interesting group around Bryce Young, but what McMillan does for Legette cannot be understated.
That's exactly where my mind was going. It's like, oh my God, it's almost like you made a 2-for-1 pick here. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I know that they talked about that a lot with Travis Hunter, but I'm like, you get Tet McMillan. It's like now you're maximizing two different wide receiver spots, which
Correct.
I love.
It's huge.
Okay, let's go to the Jaylen Koh side of things here. Okay, so Jaylen Koh I think can play a lot of flanker slot. But when we're talking about Adam Thielen, we want Adam Thielen in that flanker slot position as well. Given his age, do you think that Adam Thielen basically blocks the development of a young guy like Jaylen Koh?
Yeah, I mean, potentially for sure, but Thielen is on a short-term deal.
Yeah.
He's also a guy that, now they took a wide receiver. It wouldn't totally shock me if he's traded to a contender, before the season just to get a pick for him. And, he's kind of talked about, hey, it's kind of my last years. He likes playing in Carolina. He likes playing with Bryce Young. And I think him and Dave Canales had a good thing going there, but that could be a conversation that they have with the player. But definitely, I think, I wouldn't want to just cut off Koker's development. He was very productive last year, second in yards per route run against man coverage.
That's crazy.
For all of the rookies last year,
that's insane.
Which is wild for a UDFA. That's a huge hit for them, and he showed a lot. So that's definitely the biggest question here. But I mean, if it is just those two guys rotating in that spot, not bad. And by the way, you're Carolina. You want to have an embarrassment of riches. You don't want to get in a position last year where Thielen goes down, and then we're scrambling. What do we do?
Great point.
You want to have depth at this position.
Yeah.
So for Bryce Young, this is huge, and for McMillan, I think he comes out of this as a big post-draft winner as well, because he has a coach who's invested in him. Also, Josh Norris from Underdog pointed this out that there was a lot of questions about McMillan's work ethic and what drives him and all this stuff.
Okay.
He had his best season in college, Tet McMillan, in 2023 from this is when people were really high on him after that 2023 season.
Right.
Brennan Carroll, one of Pete Carroll's sons, was on that staff at Arizona under Jed Fish. And Dave Canales is coaching mentor is Pete Carroll. And one of Carroll's sons was on this staff with Dave Canales last year in Carolina. So if anyone's going to know how to reach this guy, anyone's going to know how to reach this guy and what, hey, what drives you, how to coach a player. I think Canales is the right guy to do it. So he's fired up about it. I'm fired up about it. If you just look at Bryce Young, what he does the best, I think he really works well over the middle of the field. Tet McMillan, 77.8% success rate versus post routes, 82.5% success rate on digs. These are the routes that him and Bryce Young are going to really connect on. He's probably the best. He's certainly the best ball winner in this receiver room. So I'm really excited about the offense that they're building there in Carolina. It's still, Bryce Young. We'll see what his ceiling is, but I think we can say he's a functional NFL quarterback. And man, you've got a lot of really interesting receivers, and I love the way you said that. This is you kind of got two players in one here because you're going to have Legette in a much better position.
The last thing I'll say about Carolina is, and you talked about Bryce Young. It's great for Bryce Young, But I do think that this move also allows for Carolina to make a true evaluation. And what I mean by that is that it's going to put pressure on Bryce Young. If this offense does not work out with Tet McMillan, Xavier Legette, Jaylen Koh, Adam Thielen, you got your run game, right? Like if this passing game doesn't work, the blame is going to fall squarely on the very slight shoulders of Bryce Young.
You didn't have to say it like that.
I was semi-disrespectful. But no, but again, it gives Carolina an opportunity to make a true evaluation. Yeah. If he's not the guy, guess what? This upcoming draft, it's much deeper at the quarterback position. Don't be surprised if it doesn't work out. They move on from Bryce Young as well.